AGRs.
Y'all was talking about rope pull a while ago. Of course, they were still going on when I was here, and we participated in it. And later on, I had my family had a son that went to UT Martin. Of course, Martin had chartered by that time down there, and he didn't want to come up here, so he was an AGR at Martin. And they were in rope pull and never won. They never won. They just did their farm. I said, it's ridiculous. A bunch of guys all driving pickup trucks can't win a tug of war. So we went down there, and I showed them the technique. And we went over there one night that there's practicing. I set them all down, dug their heels in, put the biggest man in the fraternity with a towel around him, and they never lost after that. They finally just dropped the whole thing.
A really important part of the tug of war was calling cadence.
Yep.
And Max Cobble did it first, and Rex Bracy did it second.
I was a cadence caller.
You were third?
Another important part was the weigh-in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put your foot on the scale.
There were many times when I didn't even weigh 200.
I'm getting a general drift as why this bunch is successful.
Sidney Johnson always looked, you know. Sidney was our friend, though, I like to say, even though he's a Lambda cat.
I did it for 2 years, the cadence calling. That was the secret to it. If you get them in rhythm, you could do it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the old dogs, when we moved into this house that year, we celebrated by having the alumni pull against the active chapter. And we liked the killers, but we won. The old dogs won. We pulled them in.
I went to a chiropractor and a physical therapist the next day, and everybody else I could find. I like to die.
Entertainment one several times. We used to go across the river over on that bluff, pull our shirts off and climb trees. I've got several pictures, about a half a dozen of us.
Well, now Lewis is a supreme tree climber. He's a hunting knife.
I don't know how we got over there. Somebody had a car, I guess, it did.
Well, I remember some incidents, several things that connect one way or the other. John Yunt and I, during my senior year, and he had gone the year before, went to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and worked for the Forest Service. Well, John said to me, let's go out there. We can make a lot of money fighting forest fires. And I thought, man, that's a good deal. I never have been that part of the country. So we hitchhiked to Memphis, got a year-old Chevrolet convertible, drove it to Seattle, Washington to a dealer out there, then hitchhiked back to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and worked all summer there. Then hitchhiked back to Nashville. When John was that next year after I'd graduated, John was the secretary of the Caribbean Senior Society. And most of y'all know what the Caribbean Senior Society was, the secret society that attempted to run the campus. Well, John hid that thing under in his
Dirty clothes box.
Dirty clothes box. And Rex, Lance's brother, and I don't know who it, and Dan Cupp and Goop Minot, who was a Phi Sig, found that thing, went through and knew all the secrets of the Caribbean Senior Society. Well, they wound up, they decided the only way to save themselves was to make them a member.
Initiate me.
Initiate you. So,
Swear me to secrecy.
and swear to secrecy. That was something else.
That's how I got to be a Caribbean, illegitimately.
I never will forgive y'all for the goat book, though. I tell you what, that goat book, but I guess it was the best thing that ever happened because I knew all of his names, I knew everything about you, you know, I could call them rhythms, I'll get all of you, because that was required, and had to get it, you know, we seriously, even go get everybody's name and walked up out there and get them to sign it, and of course, y'all, it's a pledge, they'd tear it out and throw it away, you know, and all that mess, but I still got my goat book. Did y'all have goat books when y'all were here?
Yeah.
Murphy was the guy that made us fill it out. Get all the
Well, I could imagine Murphy making you fill it out.
Yeah.
Who was the first pledge? Was that Wayne Bell?
I don't remember.
We
There were
took
several
him.
that came in that fall, and I don't know
I
what
was
which.
in the
34.
first pledge.
I think it was Wayne.
It must have been 34.
We took Dwayne, yeah, I'm mixing him with the traffic officer.
Dwayne Bell was 54.
But anyway, we took him on a goat ride, the first goat ride ever, and we drove way out in Blount County as far as we could drive, and when the one car we had, and put him out, and he was on his own, took all of his money and everything, identification. And some way, old cool conniving Dwayne.
It was Joe Armstrong who hitchhiked back and beat us back.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Anyway, we drove then back to the fraternity house, and we got there, he'd already connived with some homeowner to drive him back, and he had the money to pay him when we got there, and he beat us back to the
Yeah,
fraternity.
that was Joe Armstrong. Green, he was a successful pledge. He worked at it for many years.
Had experience.
Yeah, his first job was to take a German Shepherd dog that he'd trained to go out in the Canadian woods and chew the fungus growth off of the trees that were causing the problem. He got paid by the Canadian government.
Not Canadian, it was Forest Service where I worked,
Oh, it was?
in Idaho, yeah.
He's successful.
If this wasn't an X-rated movie, I'd tell about his hitchhike trip back from Coeur d'Alene, but I can't tell that one. It's too bad.
Well, Joe can figure out a way to blurt the words.
Lou, I think I remember you taking a pledge, helping take a pledge on a goat ride one night. And he thought he was not going to be left, but he made a comment, and as I recall, you said drive.
Barton
Mount.
Mount.
Yeah.
We left him in the graveyard.
He never came back. I don't think.
He didn't quite fit anyway.
No, he didn't. But he said something, and Lou said drive.
So he never came back. I never saw him again. He's still in the cemetery.
He was from a little town over here where we had another guy too from, wasn't he? East Tennessee?
I don't know.
Yes, I remember.
I was from Middle Tennessee, like some of you all were, back when Middle Tennessee was totally Democrat. And when I got here to the university, I never had been to East Tennessee before. I found out somewhere in that process that Bob Aikman was a Republican, and I said, "You're the first Republican I've ever seen." I didn't know that there was anybody that at that time that there was anybody else other than Democrats, and Bob Aikman was the first Republican I'd seen. Another thing that I remember early on was Tony Wilson was the noble ruler, and Tony and I went to Eugene, Oregon, to the National Convention. We rode a bus out there, and during the bus ride, while we ran across two gals that were going the same direction, and we kind of paired up with them and snuggled around with them a little bit. But when we got there, I recall shaking hands with Sleater Bull and getting the password and so forth, and shaking hands with Sleater Bull. And to me, that was really an unusual thing to be able to do, because he was the first and grand president of the fraternity.
But he was on our front porch up at 1613 Clinch one time. I remember that vividly.
He was there when we got the shield.
He was?
Yeah. He and Dr. Brim presented it.
Well, I was a pledge then, and I didn't get to participate.
Somebody mentioned the DeMent brothers.